Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to be providing an update to the bull market support band. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. Let's go ahead and jump in. So, Bitcoin is nearing new all-time highs. Again, the prior all-time high is just over 123,000. And right now, Bitcoin is approaching 122,000. Now, one of the things to remember, we put out a video on this about a week ago or so. We discussed Bitcoin monthly returns in post halving years in the month of August. And you can see an interesting pattern emerges. 2013, Bitcoin was green in both July and August, and then there was a pullback in September. In 2017, Bitcoin was green in July and August, slight pullback in September. 2021, same thing, right? Green July and August, slight pullback in September. What you'll notice in all of these years, right, in 2021 and in 2017 and in 2013, September was red, but only after both July and August were green, and then October was also green. So, as it relates to the bull market support band, we can go back and look to kind of see what happened in the prior post halving years in August. You can see in 2021, Bitcoin moved up in August, and then it kind of found a local top by the end of August, checked in with the bull market support band, and then it went into the market cycle peak. Okay. If you go look at the cycle before that, you'll see that Bitcoin put in a local top at the end of August, and then it went into the bull market support band in September before going into its market cycle top. If you go back the cycle before that, you'll notice that Bitcoin went up into late August and then hit the bull market support band in September before going into its market cycle peak. So, if this pattern were to continue, it would suggest that Bitcoin can continue to do well for most of the rest of the month, get a pullback in September to the bull market support band, and then go into whatever the market cycle peak is going to be, potentially in the fourth quarter of the year. Do note that that would actually align pretty well with the ROI from the bottom for Bitcoin in terms of time. If you look at the last two cycles and then compare it to this cycle, you can see we're currently on day 1006. Last cycle ended on day 1059. The cycle before that ended on day 1067, which would suggest, potentially still a couple of months. Just keep this in mind as we continue to watch this play out, because so far it's playing out basically like every prior post halving year. July and August are green. We'll see if August still is green at the end of the month. If it is, I would be mentally prepared for a slight pullback in September before potentially going into the market cycle top. And where that pullback will likely be, if I had to guess, would be the trusty bull market support band, which again, the values of it right now are not as important if it does in fact take until September to reach it. But right now it ranges from around 105 to 107K. Do note it is moving up. I think we have an indicator over here that actually projects it out as well. Yeah, we can look at the forecast of that 20-week SMA based on just if the price were to stay constant, which it won't. But if it did, that would put the 20-week SMA, at around 110K, 115K, by about mid-September or so. So it could play out something like that, right? Where it goes up, down into September, and then up into whatever the market cycle top is going to be. This is, of course, if it plays out like all prior cycles. A lot of people might argue that this time could be different, and at the end of the day, anything's possible. But it's just an important pattern to be aware of how Bitcoin sort of finishes market cycles. Green in July and August in the post-halving year, slight pullback in September, then go into the market cycle top, and then we will see you at the end of 2026. But just keep that in mind. It seems like a decent playbook to have in mind right now. Do note that if you do get that pullback by Bitcoin, let's say it rallies for another week or two, a couple more weeks, if you do get a pullback in September, it might actually correspond to that final drop by alt Bitcoin pairs, potentially to the range lows. And then that story would finally be complete. Remember that alt Bitcoin pairs got a drop to the range lows in October of 2017. And again, this drop that all Bitcoin pairs got back in 2017, it started on a Bitcoin drop and then it continued on a Bitcoin rally, right? So a lot of times, again, people say, well, would altcoins bleed on a Bitcoin drop or Bitcoin rally? And the answer is yes, right? They'll likely drop against Bitcoin when Bitcoin gets a pullback, and they'll likely drop against Bitcoin when Bitcoin goes into potentially the final rally of the cycle. So we'll see if this plays out. My guess, again, and we've talked about this for a while, my guess is that alt Bitcoin pairs will really start to roll over about late August. I'm thinking maybe around August 23rd, 22nd, 24th. I would say around late August, plus or minus a few days, is where I think you'll find alt Bitcoin pairs find a local top. They could still rally from here before that happens, right? They certainly could still rally from here before that happens. But I do expect them to roll over and that liquidity to flow back into Bitcoin. And the way it should play out, right, is that Bitcoin goes up in August, Ethereum goes too. Ethereum is leading, right? ETH Bitcoin's going up. Slight pullback in September that spooks the altcoin market. Liquidity people rush back to the relative safety of Bitcoin during that time. And then when that happens, Bitcoin then starts to move up before the alts because people want the assurance that Bitcoin's bull market is not over. And then once it breaks into new highs, then the altcoin market moves. So I think that you can kind of see how this might all play out. It's just a matter of waiting and seeing this whole thing kind of finalize and remembering that even with altcoins, we saw a low in June of 2023, we saw a low in June of 2022, June of 2023, another low in June of 2024, and then another low in June of 2025. But notice how a lot of the larger alt Bitcoin rallies that we've gotten didn't actually start until November. So again, it's hard to know if it's going to play out like it always does, but I would say why fade what's always happened at this point when it just keeps, the cycle has been nothing more than, hey guys, people keep saying it's going to be different, and instead Bitcoin leads the bull market, altcoins lag, people wonder why altcoins are lagging, and they just keep on lagging. Same thing with Ethereum, right? If people thought Ethereum was going to lead, it didn't until it went home. So I think you're likely going to see the valuation of ETH continue to go up against Bitcoin for the next couple of weeks. I think you'll see liquidity flow back into Bitcoin September, October. And that is my guess as to how this is going to play out. That's my guess. We'll see if that's how it does. But as it relates to the bull market square pan, remember, wherever this ends up being in September is probably where the next pullback will be. So you could, for instance, you could see Bitcoin rally up several thousand more dollars in August, and then get that pullback in September, and then go into the rally potentially to whatever the market cycle top is. But those are my views. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and again, check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.